I bet you didn't know that this flatbread was around a long time before pizza. Bread's been around in the Middle East forever, before anywhere else. Za'atar and olive oil literally run through our veins, and the recipe for a manoushe is in the 10th century cookbook. Pizza, on the other hand, is a different story. Tomatoes weren't reported to be discovered until the 15th century, much later than the manoushe's discovery in the 10th century. And at the time, tomatoes were considered to be purely ornamental, much like kale was until they started shoving it in everything 20 years ago. Most sources note that the tomato was native to the Americas and is a New World fruit, meaning it wasn't discovered until about 1492. The legend has it in 1889, Neapolitan baker Rafael Esposito made the first pizza to honor the visit of King Umberto I and his queen Margherita visiting his city. He rolled out a circular piece of dough and topped it with tomatoes, cheese, and basil to represent the Italian flag to honor his visitors. Now, this pizza was a success. This combination is still famous and known to this day as a margherita pizza, named after the queen and not the famous Mexican cocktail. When exactly the first manoushe was made still remains shrouded in a little bit of a cloud of mystery. Very little is known about its true origins. The 10th century Baghdad cookbook has a recipe for a flatbread that looks just like a manoushe, and za'atar and olive oil were both available to cooks back then. And traditionally, women in that era would bring their dough to a communal oven to bake bread to bring home to their family for a little bit of nutrition. They would eventually start adding toppings to that dough, and from there, the recipe for the world-famous manoushe would be born. Considering that the flatbread was around, the technique was around, and the ingredients of za'atar and olive oil were around, it seems obvious that they would soon come together. Lebanese food writer Fuad Kassab even said, "It seems highly unlikely that ingredients so destined to be together would wander around the earth lonely for long." With all this in mind, it seems that the za'atar manoushe would have originated around the 10th century. Why should you care, right? We believe it's important to recognize the origins of food, the cultural context, the rich history surrounding it, and all the collective memories that are tied so closely with it. And that's what we're trying to do by sharing our love for the manoushe, because it meant so much to us, and we hope that can mean a lot to you too. Many ancient cultures had their own flatbreads. But when they weren't busy building pyramids, the ancient Egyptians are believed to be one of the first civilizations to make their own bread almost 5,000 years ago. So back in 2019, tech developer / physicist / self-described gastro-Egyptologist Seamus Blackley made a sourdough bread using yeast found in clay pot from ancient Egypt that dated almost 5,000 years ago. He kicked off what was likely the sourdough baking revolution in the pandemic times, and we get it, Egypt, you were making sourdough bread before it was cool. It seems obvious that the manoushe was around a long time before pizza ever was. The main ingredients, pizza, weren't even discovered until much later. The first report of a pizza wasn't reported until much later. It's likely that the manoushe wasn't the first ever flatbread made and was probably inspired by another earlier flatbread. It is likely that people were making round, circular doughs and then started putting toppings on top of it. And it's just that those toppings were probably za'atar and olive oil a long time before they were tomato sauce and cheese. When we first started making manoushe at farmers markets in DC way back in 2016, the one thing we heard the most was, "Ooh, is that pizza?" And while it was easiest to describe manoushe as a sort of Middle Eastern pizza, it's dough with toppings, they're baked, but that's kind of where the similarity with pizza ends. And while we understand the desire to make unfamiliar foods familiar, we became pretty adamant that people come to know the manoushe as a manoushe. This was easy for us. We grew up on manoushe, but not everyone was so lucky. So we're here today to settle it for once and for all. What exactly is a manoushe? A manoushe, quite simply, is a flatbread. It's traditionally made with a variety of toppings, and it's common in Levantine cuisine ranging from Jordan, Palestine, Lebanon, and Syria. A manoushe is baked briefly in an oven. It's crispy on the outside but chewy on the inside, sometimes in a regular home oven, sometimes in a brick oven, or sometimes on a dome-shaped griddle oven like we use at the bakery here called a saj. This saj goes way back to the Phoenicians when they used to get a wood fire going, slap the metal on top, and cook on it. It creates what we think is like the perfect crispy yet pillowy texture for a manoushe to slather on wonderful toppings. Nowadays, manoushe can have a whole variety of toppings that weren't always there, but I think that the top 4, maybe most popular or well-known, are these. One is by far the most famous, and that is the za'atar manoushe. This is made with that most famous blend of herbs in the Middle East. It's wild thyme, toasted sesame seeds, sumac, mixed with a really rich, delicious olive oil, slathered up in a spread and spread over a hot bread. This is the one Manoushe that probably evokes the most nostalgia for everyone. And people in the Middle East are even so particular about their za'atar that they'll actually sometimes bring their own blend to the bakery and have them make it on the hot bread for them. So now that you know what Manoushe is, you're probably thinking, by golly, I would love to get my hands on one of them delicious things. And if you're in the DC, Maryland, Virginia area, you are in luck. You can come by our shop in Rockville, Maryland, which was just named one of Bon Appetit's 50 best new restaurants in the country, or go to a local Whole Foods and grab one of our ready-to-heat Manoushe from the freezer aisle. All right, now back to the presentation. The second most common one is lebne. Lebne is a strained yogurt. It's creamy, a little salty, but also tangy. And it's often sprinkled with za'atar. It has tomatoes, cucumber, mint, drizzled with beautiful olive oil. You can't have lebne without olive oil. It needs to have it. This was another one that was huge in our childhood. Our grandma would make us little lebne Manoushe sandwiches anytime we went over. And even our most popular item on our menu is the Lebanese bride, named after our dad's childhood trips to Lebanon, where they would go first stop, get a little wrapped Manoushe with Lebanon veggies inside, and when you pull the wax paper back, it looks like the veil of a bride. The other most popular one, obviously, is cheese, jibne. So, but it's not your usual cheesy suspects. The most popular ones on Manoushe are traditionally akawi, which is a salty brined white cheese, and that's named for the port city of Akka in Palestine. Another one that we also use here at the shop is called kashkaval, and that's a Bulgarian sheep's cheese. It's delicious flavor. And the last but not least, very famous Manoushe topping is lahem bi'ajin, meat and dough, or what a lot of people call sfiha. It's extremely popular throughout the region. People in Turkey, Armenia. It's made with either minced beef or lamb, sometimes both, diced onions, tomatoes, parsley, usually pomegranate molasses. A lot of different wonderful spices comes together in this beautiful little meat pie. You often have it with a little bit of lemon yogurt or a spritz of lemon. It really just brings all the notes together. And maybe because it's so flexible, or probably because it's so delicious, Manoushe has become one of the most recognizable and popular foods from our region. And so while pizza culture exists here in the US, there is a very strong Manoushe culture in the Middle East. And that's what we're hoping to introduce here to everyone, one Manoushe at a time. But we're calling a Manoushe, which some people might call a Manoushi or a Manoushe or a whatever. The root of the word is from the Arabic word negish, to carve or to sculpt, basically to create these little wonderful pockets for flavor that you're gonna fill with these toppings. And there's also now the topic of singular versus plural. So there is Manoushe, singular, Manoushe, plural. That's why you'll often hear two different ones. While today we're using the more maybe Medini, modern city style, with the kind of silent ka. A lot of people pronounce it Menakish, Menkushe. My mom's people who pronounce it Menegish or Mengushe. So you'll hear all three different kind of interchangeably depending on where someone's from or how they said it growing up. So whether you call it Manoushe, Menkushe, Mengushe, you call it whatever you want. You can call it fataya, just don't call it pizza. We hope you enjoyed this video, learned a little bit, had some fun, and hope that it motivates you to go try a Manoushe or share a Manoushe with someone who hasn't yet. Thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, share with friends, and we'll see you next time.